here to address a misconception today, which is that the C8 Corvette cannot be drifted. You've probably seen that in a couple of videos. Cletus did a video on how to do a burnout, and there's been a couple of YouTubers that have done videos on how to do donuts, but I don't think anybody has done a video about how to drift the car. And while you can't really get a super aggressive angle because with all the weight in the rear and all the grip, you run into two problems. The first of which is snap oversteer, which is when you're not giving it enough throttle and all the weight on the rear causes your tires to hook up and send you straight into a wall, which you don't want to happen. With all that weight in the rear, you're building up a lot of momentum. So if you give it too much throttle or too much angle, you're just going to spin right around. So it kind of keeps you from being able to get too aggressive of an angle, or basically you just want to be careful with your angle and with how much throttle you're giving it so you don't run into snap oversteer or just spinning out. But despite those limitations, you can definitely still have some fun with it. So let's get into that.
So obviously you want to have your traction control all the way off. If you click the button once, it turns off your traction control, and if you hold it down for 10 seconds, it turns off stability control. I would say put it in whatever mode feels most comfortable for you, track mode or sport mode, whether you like tighter suspension or not. Now you're definitely going to want to be in manual mode. If you're starting from a dead stop, lock it in first gear.
And then really all you got to do to start is obviously just crank the wheel. And then you're going to give it a lot of throttle, but you don't want to give it too much, or you're just going to spin out right away. So you got to start. Actually, I would say you almost have to drive into it just a little bit, and then yeah, for like a second, just give it a lot of throttle just to kick out the rear end. I'll just start with that and give it a try. As you might have seen there, I didn't give it enough throttle and I didn't give it enough angle. So I was being hesitant because I'd honestly rather run into snap oversteer with this much room than spinning out. But that's what can happen really, really easily if you're not giving it enough throttle or enough angle. It will just send you straight. So keep that in mind. Okay. So there's really no way to explain this to you because you kind of have to feel it out yourself. It depends on like how wide you're swinging it, how much throttle you're giving it. But basically once you crank the wheel and give it that first little bit of throttle, it's gonna spin back, and honestly you're kind of just gonna feel it. Like once it feels like it's at that optimal point, then you're just gonna want to grab the wheel again, and just it's one of those things that you feel out. You kind of hold yourself in your angle, and a lot of it is throttle, which we'll get to next. But again, let's just show what you're doing with your hands and with the steering wheel. So if you're going and you crank the wheel and you floor it, crank the wheel, you get a lot of throttle. These are brand new tires. They're really sticky, so more snap oversteer than I remembered, but it can still be done. Still be done. So the wheel swings back to the point it kind of needs to be at. You just have to grab it at the right time. And then it shouldn't require too much input from the wheel to hold it into your angle. But throttle is really important. Those videos, I was not giving it enough throttle, so it was hooking up. So as you can see, you're kind of just like modulating your throttle. After that first initial, when you first like floor it to kick out the rear end, after that you're kind of just tapping it, not too much, because if you give it a lot at one time, it's just gonna make you spin right around. But it's one of those things where you have to feel out that optimum spot. It really depends on how much tire you have, your surface that you're on. But if you can find that right point to tap it to each time, then it'll kind of just like keep you kicked loose, but it's not going to make you spin all the way around. It's not going to give you too much momentum. So I wish I could give you like more specific information on it, but it's one of those things you kind of have to feel out. I'm just making this video to show how I've done it and to show that it can be done. So we'll get some outside shots and then that'll wrap it up. So that's a pretty clean example of how you can drift this car. That's probably about as much angle as you can really give it. Now, I'm sure there will be modifications you can make in the future to get more angle, to make more power, that'll give you more control over that. With all that weight in the rear, if you're sending that momentum farther around, you're definitely gonna spin out. So got less tread on the tires, or you're on a more slippery surface. You can get pretty wild with it, but those are not the circumstances today. So yeah.